good person, and everybody knows Kaylin would do anything for you. She didn't deserve this.
The man accused of killing a mother and two of her children was back in a Charlotte courtroom.
Benjamin Taylor is charged with the murder of 22-year-old Markayla Johnson, 4-year-old Miracle Johnson, and 7-month-old Messiah Johnson.
It was March 15, 2024, in a quiet apartment complex on Orchard Trace Lane in Charlotte, North Carolina, the kind of place where noise is rare, where the world feels muted. Behind one of those doors, neighbors had noticed something strange. A young mother hadn't been seen in days. Her blinds were drawn, her car hadn't moved, and her phone had gone silent. Then came the smell. When police arrived for a welfare check, the door creaked open to still air. Officers called out, no response. They searched the rooms, each step echoing through the apartment. And then, in the corner of a bedroom, they saw it. A large plastic storage container. The lid was closed, but what leaked from its edges made the officers freeze. Inside was 22-year-old Markayla Johnson, a mother of two, her body bound and hidden like an object to be forgotten. The air was heavy with decay and something else, loss, confusion, the haunting question of why. For detectives, that discovery was only the beginning. Because when they found Markayla, her children, 4-year-old Miracle and 7-month-old Messiah, were nowhere to be seen. Their toys sat untouched in the living room. A half-eaten breakfast was still on the counter. There were no signs of forced entry, no screams reported. Just silence. And that silence was deafening. The search began immediately, officers canvassing nearby dumpsters, parking lots, woods. Amber alerts flashed across the state. Family members begged for answers. But deep down, detectives feared what they already knew: time was running out. Meanwhile, one name kept surfacing. Benjamin Taylor. He wasn't a stranger or a random suspect, he was Markayla's boyfriend. The man she trusted. The man her children had called Ben. When police checked his name, a new detail hit like a gut punch: he was gone. His phone was off. His car missing. And just like that, the story shifted. From a welfare check, to a manhunt. Detectives pieced together what little they could. Neighbors had seen Taylor carrying bags late at night, moving back and forth from the apartment. No one thought much of it at the time. Now, those late-night trips carried a new, horrifying weight. Inside the apartment, investigators found air fresheners, candles, cleaning supplies, all clustered near the container where Markayla's body was found. As if someone had tried, desperately, to cover what couldn't be hidden. But the one thing they couldn't find were the children. For days, the question echoed through Charlotte: where are Miracle and Messiah? Detectives traced Taylor's car using surveillance footage and highway cameras. His vehicle was spotted heading west, out of North Carolina, across state lines, through Tennessee, through Arkansas, through deserts and silence, until finally, nearly 2,200 miles away, in Imperial County, California, police caught up to him. He was alone. And what they found in his car ended the search. Inside the trunk were the bodies of Miracle and Messiah Johnson, tied, lifeless, hidden away like the truth he tried to bury. It was a discovery that broke seasoned detectives. Even among those who'd seen everything, this was something else. The news hit Charlotte like a wave of grief. A young mother and her two babies, gone. The city's collective heart stopped. How could someone do this? How could anyone? Benjamin Taylor was arrested on the spot. Charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder. Back in North Carolina, the crime scene became a memorial. Neighbors placed flowers outside the apartment. Balloons, teddy bears, photos of smiling children, reminders of the lives that should have been. But beneath that grief, a new question began to form. Who was Benjamin Taylor, and what could drive him to destroy the people who trusted him most? The answer would unfold piece by piece, through friends' accounts, social media posts, and the chilling evidence left behind. And as investigators peeled back the layers, they would uncover a relationship tainted by control, secrets, and violence waiting to erupt. This wasn't a random act. It was a story of love twisted into something unrecognizable. A story that would haunt an entire city. Before the headlines, before the horror, there was love, or something that looked like it. Markayla Johnson was just 22. Bright-smiled, soft-spoken, a young mother who carried the world on her shoulders. Friends said she had a calm spirit, the kind that could turn chaos into peace. She worked hard, cared deeply, and dreamed of giving her 2 children a life better than the one she had known. Her daughter, Miracle, was 4, full of questions and boundless laughter. Her baby boy, Messiah, only 7 months old, was her pride. Her world revolved around them. In every photo, she's holding one of them, her arms a constant shield, her smile a quiet promise. To those who knew her, Markayla was trying. She wasn't rich, but she was resourceful. She wasn't perfect, but she was strong. She loved without hesitation, even when life didn't always love her back. And somewhere along that path, she met Benjamin Taylor. At first glance, Benjamin looked harmless, friendly, polite, the kind of man who could win you over with a smile. On social media, he played the part of a caring partner. Photos of him holding the kids, captioned with hearts and Bible verses. He called them, "my world, my family, my everything." But behind that digital warmth, something darker simmered. Friends of Markayla say the relationship moved fast. Too fast. What began as affection soon became dependency. Benjamin wanted to be with her constantly, to know where she was, who she talked to, what she did. He'd say things like, "I just want to protect you," but his protection often looked a lot like control. Slowly, her independence began to fade. She stopped seeing friends as often. Calls went unanswered. Texts became brief, cautious. Even her tone changed, once lively, now subdued. Those who asked if she was okay got the same answer every time, "I'm fine." But she wasn't. Benjamin had a past, one Markayla didn't fully know, or maybe one she chose to overlook. He had been in trouble before. Run-ins with the law. Anger that flared out of nowhere. A man who could charm one moment and terrify the next. And yet, he always knew how to apologize. He always found the right words to reel her back in. The cycle repeated, tension, apology, forgiveness, a slow, invisible spiral. Behind closed doors, arguments grew louder. Neighbors would later tell detectives they'd heard shouting, crying, things breaking. But no one called the police. Not that night. Not any night. Because in apartments like these, people learn to mind their own business. By early 2024, Markayla seemed exhausted. The sparkle in her eyes dulled. But she kept posting pictures of her babies, kept working, kept smiling for the camera. To outsiders, she looked fine. But her silence, that was the first sign. Benjamin, meanwhile, was unraveling. Unemployed, angry, slipping into drugs. He began using fentanyl, cocaine, mixing whatever numbed him. His messages to her became erratic, paranoid. He accused her of things she didn't do. He called her names. Then, hours later, he'd send voice notes crying, begging her not to leave. To her friends, it felt inevitable, like she was trapped in a relationship that was slowly consuming her. Still, she stayed. Maybe out of fear. Maybe out of hope that he'd change. Or maybe because she didn't see a way out. And as those final weeks approached, no one realized how close she was to danger. No one saw how fast the tension was building, or how far Benjamin Taylor was willing to go to keep control. Soon, that control would turn into destruction. And love, if that's what it ever was, would turn deadly. The weeks before the murders were a slow-motion warning sign, one that nobody could fully read until it was too late. Benjamin Taylor's mask was slipping. He'd gone from being charming to volatile. People around Markayla started to notice the change, in his tone, in his behavior, in the way he looked at her. What once passed as affection began to feel like ownership. When he wasn't around, he was calling. When he wasn't calling, he was checking her location. If she didn't answer fast enough, he'd accuse her of lying. If she went quiet, he'd show up unannounced. Markayla tried to keep the peace. She'd calm him down, reassure him, try to avoid the next explosion. But behind closed doors, it was getting harder to manage. The children had started to sense it too, the tension in the air, the edge in his voice. Friends would later tell police that Markayla had mentioned taking a break. She wanted distance, a reset, maybe to move in with family for a while. But Benjamin wasn't having it. Every time she tried to step back, he pulled her closer, through guilt, through tears, through promises he never kept. By March of 2024, things had reached a breaking point. Taylor's temper was shorter, his paranoia sharper. His drug use deepened the volatility. Cocaine, fentanyl, a swirl of chemicals and rage. On social media, his posts grew strange. Cryptic messages about betrayal, loyalty, death. He'd quote Bible verses out of context, lines about judgment, vengeance, purity. He was spiraling, and no one knew how deep it would go. Markayla's friends noticed her withdrawing again. She canceled plans, stopped responding to messages. One friend said she looked drained, like she hadn't been sleeping. Another recalled her saying, "I just want things to get better." But things weren't getting better. They were collapsing. There were arguments that neighbors overheard, shouting, the sound of things thrown against walls. Police were never called. Maybe it felt like just another fight. Maybe people didn't want to get involved. But those sounds were more than noise, they were warnings. And then came the silence. Markayla stopped posting altogether. No new photos. No stories. No messages. For a young mother who lived online, that quiet was strange. Days passed. No one heard from her. Her children weren't seen outside. And still, no one knew what was happening inside that small apartment on Orchard Trace Lane. In the days leading up to March 15th, Benjamin had reportedly been acting erratic. He'd been seen pacing outside, talking to himself, muttering. One neighbor told police he looked haunted. Another said he'd noticed Taylor carrying bags in and out of the apartment late at night, trash bags, duffel bags, but didn't think much of it. No one called for help. And when the stench began to drift through the hallway, it was already too late. Because by then, the storm had broken. The red flags that had fluttered quietly for months, jealousy, isolation, control, rage, had all converged into one catastrophic moment. Behind those apartment walls, something irreversible had already happened. Benjamin Taylor had crossed the line from obsession to annihilation. And within that silence, a mother's love, a child's laughter, and a baby's breath had all been extinguished, without a sound, without a warning that anyone could stop in time. It's hard to say exactly when the night turned. Maybe it started as an argument, one of many. Maybe it began with a word, a glance, a phone call that triggered Benjamin Taylor's anger. Or maybe it was always destined to end this way, a slow build of rage waiting for its moment. What is known is this: sometime in mid-March 2024, the world inside that small Charlotte apartment went still. Police would later piece together fragments of those final hours, the broken timeline of a man unraveling. Benjamin Taylor was using again, cocaine, fentanyl, a cocktail that blurred the edges of reason. He was paranoid, angry, convinced Markayla was betraying him. To him, every silence was an insult, every boundary an act of defiance. That night, whatever peace remained between them shattered. Detectives believe the argument escalated quickly. There were signs of struggle in the bedroom, overturned furniture, items knocked from shelves. What happened next was violent, merciless. Markayla Johnson, just 22 years old, was overpowered and killed, her body bound and stuffed inside a plastic storage container. Around her were candles and air fresheners, an attempt to mask the inevitable smell of decay. And then there were the children. 4-year-old Miracle. 7-month-old Messiah. Their tiny lives ended before they had a chance to understand the world that betrayed them. Taylor didn't stop at killing them, he hid them. Their bodies were found later, tied and placed in the trunk of his car. A car that would travel more than 2,000 miles across the country, carrying the unspeakable in silence. In those hours after the murders, Benjamin Taylor didn't call for help. He didn't report an accident. He cleaned. He packed. He lit candles. He moved deliberately, like a man following a dark plan only he could understand. Neighbors saw him coming and going at odd hours. Carrying bags. Loading his trunk. Eyes hollow. No one knew what they were witnessing. The apartment grew quiet. No music. No footsteps. No sound of children playing. Inside that silence, the bodies remained, 1 in a container, 2 in a trunk. And then Benjamin Taylor disappeared. He drove west, leaving Charlotte behind, crossing state lines, watching the sun rise over cities that didn't know his name. When Markayla's family couldn't reach her, panic set in. Days passed. Calls went unanswered. Texts went unread. Finally, someone called the police for a welfare check. That's when the nightmare surfaced. The smell hit officers before they even entered. Inside, they found her, bound, decomposing, surrounded by an eerie calm. A mother gone. Her children missing. At first, detectives hoped, maybe the kids were alive, maybe he'd taken them somewhere safe. But deep down, they knew. The way she was found, the way he fled, it spoke volumes. The manhunt began. And Benjamin Taylor, the man who once smiled in family photos, who once called them his world, became a fugitive. By the time police caught up to him in Imperial County, California, he was thousands of miles from Charlotte, alone, driving the same car that carried the evidence of everything he'd destroyed. When officers opened the trunk, the truth came spilling out. Inside were Miracle and Markayla Johnson, lifeless, bound, and hidden beneath blankets. The officers who found them would later say it was one of the hardest scenes they'd ever faced. Even among the seasoned, even among those who had seen death, this was different. Because this wasn't random violence. This was betrayal, the kind that only happens when love turns to obsession. Benjamin Taylor was arrested on the spot. And in that moment, the distance he'd driven meant nothing. The horror he tried to bury had caught up to him. Charlotte would wake to the news days later, a young mother, her children, gone. A family erased. A community in mourning. And behind it all, one man, one decision, one night that destroyed everything. When detectives entered the apartment in Charlotte, the smell told the story before the evidence could. The air was thick with rot and chemical sharpness, bleach, candles, and the unmistakable scent of death. They had come for a welfare check. They left with the beginning of a homicide investigation. The officers moved slowly, careful not to disturb the scene. In the corner of the bedroom was a plastic bin, sealed and bound with tape. The kind used to store clothes, toys, old belongings, but not this. Inside was the body of 22-year-old Markayla Johnson, tied, bruised, and cold. It was clear that whoever did this had tried to delay discovery. The lid was wrapped, the floor cleaned. But no amount of bleach could hide what had happened. As detectives processed the scene, one question filled the silence. Where were the children? Miracle and Messiah, 4 years old and 7 months old, were nowhere to be found. No signs of them alive. No cribs disturbed. No clothes missing. It didn't take long to notice what else was gone. Benjamin Taylor. His clothes. His wallet. His car. A man on the run. Police quickly pulled surveillance from the apartment complex. Cameras caught him leaving in the early morning hours, a duffel bag in hand, moving with eerie calm. He didn't look like someone fleeing in panic. He looked like someone executing a plan. The investigation expanded fast. Meanwhile, forensic teams scoured the apartment. They found blood spatter on the walls and floor, small, but telling. The rope used to bind Markayla matched fibers found in Taylor's vehicle from earlier traffic stops. And then there were the text messages. Days before the murders, Benjamin had been texting Markayla obsessively, angry, jealous, accusing her of cheating, threatening to take the kids. One message stood out: "You'll see what happens if you ever try to leave me." Detectives had seen this pattern before: control, possession, the slow tightening grip of domestic violence that often ends in tragedy. But this case was worse. Because this wasn't just about control. It was annihilation. Across the country, Taylor was driving through Texas, New Mexico, then into California. He stopped at motels, ate at gas stations, and slept inside his car, the same car that carried the truth. When police finally located him, it wasn't through luck. It was through data. His car's license plate had been picked up by a traffic camera near the Arizona-California border. Within hours, Imperial County deputies were on alert. They spotted his vehicle parked near a rest stop, windows up, engine off. When officers approached, Benjamin Taylor didn't run. He just sat there, still. He looked at them, eyes hollow, lips dry, and said nothing. But the car told them everything. The trunk was sealed shut, wrapped with duct tape around the edges. The moment they opened it, the smell of decomposition hit, and the silence that followed was unbearable. Inside, under a blanket and towels, were the bodies of Miracle and Messiah. They had been dead for days. Officers at the scene wept. Even hardened investigators would later describe it as soul-crushing. Forensics confirmed what no one wanted to believe: the children were killed before the journey even began. Taylor had driven across the country with their bodies in his trunk. He was arrested on multiple charges: 3 counts of first-degree murder, kidnapping, and abuse of a corpse, and extradited back to North Carolina. When questioned, Benjamin Taylor offered almost nothing. No motive. No remorse. Just silence. But his silence spoke volumes. Detectives reconstructed the timeline with chilling precision: the fights, the threats, the sequence of violence that ended 3 lives. It was domestic violence turned catastrophic. And the evidence was overwhelming. Back in Charlotte, word spread quickly. News outlets described him as a monster, a coward, a killer who crossed a continent. But to Markayla's family, he was something worse, someone they once trusted. As the investigation came to an end, one thing became clear: Benjamin Taylor didn't just commit murder. He tried to erase a family. But he failed. Because now, everyone would know their names: Markayla, Miracle, Messiah. And their story would not fade into silence. When Benjamin Taylor was extradited back to North Carolina, the state that he had fled was no longer the one he left. Charlotte had changed, not in its skyline or its streets, but in its soul. People whispered his name with disgust, his photo plastered across every news broadcast. The man once seen smiling in family photos was now shackled in orange, expression blank, eyes cold. The charges were read aloud in a packed courtroom. 3 counts of first-degree murder. 2 counts of child abuse resulting in death. Concealment of a body. Each word carried the weight of what he'd done, each syllable another nail in the coffin of his freedom. When Taylor appeared for his first hearing, the courtroom fell silent. He didn't cry. He didn't speak. He didn't even look up. His public defender entered a plea of not guilty, a formality in a case where guilt had already spoken through evidence. Prosecutors presented their findings in brutal detail. The text messages, the surveillance footage, the forensic results, all woven into a narrative so horrifying that even seasoned jurors shifted in their seats. Blood evidence in the apartment. rope fibers matching those from his vehicle. DNA linking him to all 3 victims. And perhaps most damning, the GPS data proving he drove nearly 2,300 miles with their bodies sealed in his trunk. The defense tried to build a story around mental instability and drug use. They painted him as a man spiraling, not evil, just broken. But the prosecution had an answer for that too. They played the recorded interviews, the calculated way he packed, cleaned, and fled. His internet searches. His calm gas station purchases. There was no insanity. Only intention. As weeks passed, the courtroom became a battleground between logic and grief. Family members took the stand, their voices trembling. Markayla's mother described the pain of identifying her daughter, her voice cracking under the weight of memory. Her aunt spoke of Miracle's laugh, of how Messiah had just learned to crawl. Each testimony stripped away any last shred of humanity from the man sitting at the defense table. Through it all, Benjamin Taylor stared ahead, emotionless. Some said he looked haunted. Others said he looked empty. But no one saw remorse. The prosecution sought the death penalty, citing the aggravating factors, multiple victims, premeditation, extreme cruelty. It wasn't about vengeance. It was about justice, for a mother and her children who had no voice left to speak. But the case never went to a full trial. In early proceedings, Taylor's defense team negotiated a plea deal to avoid execution. In exchange for admitting guilt, he would receive 3 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. When the judge asked him how he pled, Taylor's voice finally broke the silence. Just 2 words. Guilty, Your Honor. No apology. No explanation. Just guilt. The courtroom was still. Markayla's mother wept quietly in the back row. Her sobs were the only sound that dared to fill the air. And then, it was over. The gavel fell. Benjamin Taylor was led away in chains, the man who had destroyed his family now condemned to spend the rest of his life behind bars. Outside the courthouse, reporters spoke to grieving relatives. Markayla's mother said one thing that would echo through every headline. He took everything from me. But he can't take their memory. In the months that followed, the community began to heal, slowly, painfully. Vigils were held. Candles were lit. Strangers left stuffed animals and flowers outside the apartment where it all began. And though Benjamin Taylor would never walk free again, the sentence brought little comfort. Because justice, in cases like this, never truly feels like enough. He had tried to silence 3 voices. Instead, he ensured they would never be forgotten. The news of Benjamin Taylor's sentencing brought a strange kind of quiet to Charlotte. Not peace, not yet. Just stillness. The kind that follows a storm, when everything is broken, but the world hasn't quite realized it. For Markayla Johnson's family, the verdict didn't erase the empty chairs at their dinner table. It didn't bring back the sound of Miracle's laughter or the gentle coo of baby Messiah in the morning light. Justice had been served, but the loss, it stayed. At night, neighbors said they could still see flickers of candlelight outside the apartment, small memorials left by strangers who never knew them, but felt like they did. 3 names whispered in prayer, 3 faces printed on t-shirts and posters that lined community walls. Markayla. Miracle. Messiah. A mother and her 2 children, gone, but never forgotten. The case left deep scars, not just for the family, but for the entire city. It forced uncomfortable conversations about domestic violence, about warning signs ignored, about how love can slowly turn lethal. In death, Markayla's story saved others. Her mother started a foundation in her name, one that provided temporary housing for women trying to escape dangerous relationships. She said it was her daughter's way of still protecting others. If she couldn't be saved, she said softly, then maybe someone else can. Years later, that foundation still stands. And every October, during Domestic Violence Awareness Month, purple ribbons line the fences near their old neighborhood. Each one represents a victim who never got to tell their story. But here, on Fatal Whispers, we tell it for them. Benjamin Taylor remains in prison, serving 3 life sentences in solitary silence. He doesn't grant interviews. He doesn't speak about what happened. He wakes up every morning surrounded by concrete and memories he can't escape. Some say that's justice. Others call it mercy. And yet, when you think about what he took, the innocence, the love, the small future of 2 children who never got to grow up, it's hard to call any sentence enough. Because there's no justice that brings back laughter. No verdict that fills the silence left behind. Markayla's story reminds us that danger doesn't always come from strangers lurking in the dark. Sometimes, it sleeps beside you. If this story moved you, if you believe more people should know how close tragedy can hide, please like this video, share it, and subscribe to Fatal Whispers. It helps us keep telling the stories that matter. The ones that should never fade into silence. And remember, every whisper tells a story.